Hey everybody, before we get started, I just reminding you this episode brought to you by our patrons like Adam Harp, Comics, Architect 10, Black this OG, Carlos, Qua, Jeremy Vasquez, Kylie Denton, Legendary Boss Hunter, Liam Kessler, Rogue Robin, Shawnee P, Some Guy Named Bob, Soda Son over 247 and Zach Reed. If you like what we do and want to see more, consider supporting on Patreon. You can get access to episodes early and lots of other goodies and really helps us out. Thanks for your support, everybody. Was there really any other way I could have started that? Hi everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll a 5-star. Yeah, we're back. Though, I got a special one cooked up for you guys today. So they say you should treat every episode like it's the first time your listeners tuning in. If this is your first FGO Wanted, I'm sorry. I'm doing something weird today. So today we're going to talk about Qin Shi Huang, a new upcoming 5-star ruler who is limited. This is our wheelhouse, guys. These are the big boy episodes. It's been about a year since we had a breakout hit with Abigail, and about 6-ish months since we had our big Scotty Blaster. I don't think Ivan did that good, even though I tried. Sorry, Ivan. So we got another Lost Belt King coming up, so there's a lot of interesting things to talk about with, like, real-life history, divergence, etc. And we'll get into all that, because normally here on Wanted, I divide the show up into 4 segments, roughly. We talk about real-life history, we talk about their lore with a capital L in Fate, you know, that big, juicy lore we talk about. Then we talk about their mechanics, and then we talk about their rarity. Not their star rarity, because traditionally the show is about 5 stars, though obviously I have occasionally thrown in a 4 or 3 star in there. Does this mean I have to make Wanted Nobukatsu in like 2 years? Future me problems. So, we'll do all that. That will actually happen. However, well, China's not really my wheelhouse. I'd call the Mediterranean my wheelhouse, maybe the British Isles. I'm probably passably familiar with, you know, pan-Celtic culturalisms, decent amount of the Japanese stuff. China, not so much. So, in order to bring you that spicy history lecture feel you want from Wanted, I brought in a ringer. So very shortly, I shall introduce you to Dallas, one of our community mods. I also play D&D with him, and our resident Chinophile, who has so graciously provided me the audio for the history segment of this. And then after that, we will smash cut back to me to do another thing I would say I'm passably familiar at just because I have to deal with this stuff all the time, and hit up the lore segments, which will be fun in its own way. So, with that intro bit out of the way, I think it's appropriate for me now to go ahead and just hand it over to Dallas.
Hello, this is Dallas Rose, here to help out Omega with an explanation of Qin Shi Huang's history. Now, the first thing I'll go over is Qin Shi Huang isn't his real name. His real name is Ying Zhang. I believe that's in the materials. And Qin Shi Huang is his title. It means First Emperor of Qin. And that is what he is. He's the first Emperor of Qin and the first Emperor of China. Now, his story starts with a merchant called Li Bue, who basically found his father, who was a political prisoner, and basically helped him become emperor by establishing his own power base and bankrolling him. Because Li Bue was a merchant who was not looked on very kindly, but was very smart and gathered a bunch of very smart people to help this guy become emperor because he was dumb and easy to control, and Li Bue was like, I'm gonna be set. And he does, and it works out perfectly. Problem comes when he has a son, because that son is Yang Jing, and he is not dumb. He is genius. And he takes to Li Bue's teachings, and looks into the 100 philosophies of China, which he adopts legalism. And legalism is the Machiavellian, authoritarian kind of flavor of Chinese philosophy, political philosophy rather. And it states that people are inherently bad, and they need laws in order to control them. Now, the thing about that is he also adopts reformism, which seems like it's counterintuitive, but you'll see. And one of the things about legalism that makes it applicable to reformism is that it really only cares about 2 figures. It cares about the ruler, and it cares about the peasantry. It doesn't care about aristocracy, which is why it is actually very unpopular at the time philosophy, because nobles didn't like that, because it didn't like nobles. And it's like, no, the peasants make up the military, and if the peasants do well, the peasants should get rewarded. Now, Ying Zhang takes to that, and he gets Li Bue, and he gets him out of there. He realizes he's a threat, he's stopping his power, and he's like, no, I'm going to be the king. I'm going to conquer China. or what was the provinces of, it's not important. I'm calling it China just for brevity's sake. It's not China yet. It'll be China. But he exiles Li Bui, and he drives him out. He continues to exile him to the point where Li Bui kills himself, in shame. And then Yang Jing begins his ascension. His father dies, and then he becomes the emperor, the king of Qin, and he turns this war machine, this political think tank that Li Bui has built, into a engine of destruction, and he conquers the rest of the provinces in just over 10 years. Now, something to bring up at this point is that the political situation in China is like Game of Thrones on cocaine. In his first 2 years as king of Qin, one of his brothers tried to kill him. His stepmother's boy toy is the best way to put it, a consort. His stepmother's consort tried to kill him, staged a coup. They both failed. He imprisoned his brother and killed the boy toy because he can't kill his brother, or he didn't want to. But his brother is never important again. So then, once he starts his invasion, he invades, he goes to invade a country called Yang. I believe it's Yang. Yeah, it's Yang. And his best friend is there, his childhood friend. And he sends him a note, being like, hey man, I know your country's kicking ass, you're gonna win, you're going to become the God King Emperor. I want a piece of the action, and I'm gonna send you this map. Only it's not a map, the map is actually a knife. And this is where Jin Ke comes into the picture. He is hired by Qin Shi Huang's childhood friend to kill him. And he nearly does. And the only reason he succeeds, or doesn't succeed, as so the story goes, is that a doctor that was in the area at the time threw a medicine bag and hit him in the head. And he was so surprised that he just went, what the heck? Did you just hit me with a bag? And then the emperor was able to fight him off. Now, we'll get back to the assassinations and stuff later, but the reason Qin Shi Huang was so effective at conquering these places and why it hadn't been done, even though it hadn't been done for hundreds of years, is because he had two things going for him. He was extremely intelligent, he had some brilliant generals, and he was not a traditionalist. A lot of the rules, quote unquote, of warfare that China had at the time, he was like, I don't care. Nah, screw it. I'm gonna do what I want. And he would even use his enemies' traditions against them. There was a case, when he was invading Zhao, they had a very good general who was very good at defensive strategies. So what he did was he publicly kept saying, oh, they're so cowardly, they have no backbone, they have no bravery. I'm gonna make them, like, they're so cowardly, if they weren't such cowards, they could actually fight us. To the point that the emperor, or the king of Zhao, sent his general a missive. It's like, you need to stop doing defensive strategy and fight bravely and honorably. And then he was promptly stomped into the ground by the Qin war machine. Now, once he had completed unification, by the way, in the meantime, he got assassinated, or attempted to assassinate, 3 more times. One was by a minstrel who he blinded instead of killing. Then the minstrel tried to kill him again, so he killed him. And the third was by Zhang Liang, not that one, different one. And the dude had a guy throw a hammer off of a cliff that would fall on his carriage. I'm not kidding. That's how it was planned. And the only reason he survived is because he was paranoid and would only ever travel in one of 3 carriages and never told anyone which was, so they crushed the wrong carriage. Now, once he became emperor, he really did a lot of good work at the beginning. He kind of built the Great Wall of China. I mean, there was already a bunch of walls, and he kind of mainly connected a lot of them, and then built out a lot of the southern and western parts of it. But he built what would become the Great Wall of China. He built the canals in China, one of the world's first canal systems. He built the Terracotta Army, that comes later in his tomb. He developed the first currency system in China. He developed unified writing. And one of the reasons people loved him, unironically, for the first good part of his rule, was that he was a meritocrat. In that, if a peasant was really good at something, he was like, no, screw tradition, that's stupid, we're gonna make him do that job. that peasant is really good at math. We're not going to make him be a farmer. He's going to be a scholar. And he would hold to that for a while. Now, this is where the dissent goes in. And this is a shame, but he was very paranoid. Obviously, I mentioned the assassination attempts, all the coups, all the, betrayal coming from close family and friends. It made him very afraid of death. Another thing that added on to that is how short his predecessors' runs as emperor were. His grandfather was a king of Qin for 3 days and then died. His father was only king for 3 years and then died. By the time he ascended emperor at 13, or king at 13, he was like, no, I gotta be different than that. So he became paranoid about death, and this really started to hurt him in his later life. Now, he goes to this alchemist called Zifu, and Zifu is a Confucian alchemist, and he goes, hey Zifu, I need you to find me the elixir of life. And presumably, Zifu goes, shit, I don't know how to do that. Not publicly. Publicly, he goes, okay, king, or emperor, I will find you this elixir of immortality. Here, take these pills. They will hold you off until I find the elixir of immortality. And he hands them a bag of mercury pills, which obviously do not, and only help increase his deteriorating mental state. Now, so Zifu goes on this long journey of doing nothing, because there is no elixir of immortality. Spoilers. After about a year, he's like, alright, it's been enough time. And he goes back to the emperor, and he's like, Emperor, I found the elixir of immortality. We have a problem. There's this huge, giant, destructive sea monster in the way. And he probably expects the emperor to go, alright, you tried, we're done. But no, the emperor goes, alright, here's 1/8 of my army. Go kill that sea monster. And Zifu's like, oh crap, what do I do now? So he takes the 1/8 of the army, he goes on a boat, and he goes, bye, and he leaves. Completely gone. And there's evidence that he ended up in Japan. There's coins and currency from ancient Qin China that would dictate that, but that's for another discussion. Now, the emperor's not stupid. He might be going crazy, but he's not stupid. So eventually he realizes, alright, these guys have fleeced me. These magic pills aren't helping. I'm gonna kill them. I'm gonna kill them all. And this is where his infamous titles come from, because he goes on a terror. He destroys much of early Confucian literature. He burns it, orders all of them burned. Ironically, hypocritically, he keeps copies of them himself and allows certain other people in power to keep copies of them, which is how any of them actually survived past this. And then he has all of the Confucian scholars and alchemists killed. And it says bury the scholars. The reason that's a little bit uncertain is because language is weird, and in China, the connotation of bury used in that phrase in historical literature is also the same as kill. So it's very possible that he just had them killed. Regardless, some way or another, whether he buried them alive or killed them, they're dead. And this is how he kind of starts becoming a tyrant. He was very good about, electing smart people and the best of the best. He stops doing that. He only limits himself to a very small circle of people he can trust. He stops, putting plans for his, successor, which will come back to bite him in the ass. And he just slowly deteriorates, still taking mercury. And then he dies. And once he dies, it's very important, his 18th son, which is a curse at this point, tries to basically stage a coup. And what he does is he conspires with their, advisor, who is a corrupt and crooked man. And he goes, alright, no one tell anyone the emperor is dead. Everyone's gonna go crazy. And so what they do is they go back to the capital, and then they send the successor a letter that the emperor has ordered him to commit suicide. And he does, because, I don't know, no one thinks in ancient China to check. But he kills himself, or maybe not. We'll get into that in a bit. And then the advisor predictably betrays the son, backstabs him, tries to claim emperor for himself, fails, and then the Qin dynasty is destroyed. Now, flash forward to 1974. At this point, people think that Qin Shi Huang is a myth. Like, they don't actually believe he really existed. He's just this mythological figure. And then this peasant, under the Mao craziness, is searching for water. And he finds this hole. And he looks in the hole and he sees a soldier made of clay. And he goes, huh, that's weird. And then they go in and they find thousands of terracotta soldiers. And this is the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, covered in mercury, to the point of they still have not exhumed his body because these part of the tomb that is in is so dense with mercury, anyone who tries to do it will die. And the reason I said maybe earlier to when the son committed suicide is that there's a couple of very small skeletons inside the tomb that may be Qin Shi Huang's heirs. And so that coup might have been a lot more brutal than people think it is, in that the brother may have had them killed. But we'll never know, because, we might know, but with China's current political situation, I don't know. And that's the story of Qin Shi Huang. He was a great man who turned into a tyrant, basically. There's no other way to put it. It's like, he was brutal in the beginning, yes, but he was fair and good and really genuinely wanted to do the best for China, and then his paranoia just slowly drove him insane, and it made him an evil ruler towards the end. So those are my conflicting history feelings about Qin Shi Huang. I'm gonna roll for him. I'm gonna roll a lot for him. And I hope you do too, because he's interesting and deserves, all the attention he can get, because China doesn't like information that doesn't go with their theories going out, and he doesn't. He's not Confucian, so they don't like him. And that's my part. Bye!
And we're back. Great segment there, Dallas. Very informative. Alright, so let's jump into the lore from there. So, in the Lost Belt the Third, which was originally named Qin, but then was Xian, because of theming, that story proceeds mostly the same way as it did in history. Now, obviously, while Lost Belt 3 is pretty short, and it's been out a little bit, I'm not going to go into, like, full deep dive spoiler territory, but we're going to cover a couple of things, so if you're sensitive to that, cover your ears until the background picture changes. So, like I said, that story proceeded mostly the way it had in history, right up until that bit about the quest for immortality. And actually, that's pretty interesting enough, because we do know that Qin Shi Huang eventually found the Fusang tree, which is, the tree of immortality thing. That wasn't directly related. We'll talk about how he actually became an immortal, kind of, in a second. But that's a very funny story, because remember how that alchemist possibly fucked off to Japan? Well, talk about your deepest lore. The name Fusang for the tree was originally the name of a mythic land to the east, and eventually became a very poetical name for Japan. So, hypothetically, the tree would have been there. Food for thought. But no, what actually happened was that Qin Shi Huang wasn't reliant on the pills of immortality or the tree of immortality or anything like that. As Dallas said, he was a pretty smart cookie. So he started digging around. And while his first plans for immortality were actually based on the work of a Zhenren, a perfected being, an immortal, a Taoist immortal, he didn't go for the traditional, immortality sage route, and instead discovered the remains of a laboratory and the arts of Taiyi Zhenren, who is responsible for building the body of Prince Nezha, right? So Nezha is artificial, but looks pretty humanoid. And basically, by studying this, Qin Shi Huang was able to figure out how to mechanize the flesh and become a giant robot city. I don't know if he went full robot city right away, but, it's in there. This is also where all that weird Lost Belt stuff with Zhang Yu comes up, in case you were wondering about that from last time. I almost said last week, but it has been probably a couple of weeks by the time this is all happening, since I recorded that one. Anyway. So, yeah. Basically, he discovered another way to become immortal and became, a computer upload hackerman. He did eventually find the Sage Realm, the Fusang Tree, and all that stuff, and that helped him greatly perfect his knowledge of the Sage Arts, a type of magecraft, which really revolutionized the tech base of his civilization, but that was not the source of his immortality for a long time. The physical body you see as a playable servant is something he only obtains in the actual Lost Belt after studying the tree, sage arts, and another immortal being, and being like, all right, now I can make a compact human-sized super perfect immortal body. And that's really all we need to get into there, I think, with the big lore. Just, explaining why he's a little bit different. The image you see now and displayed earlier is actually the artist's first draft of Qin Shi Huang, and probably more like what in Fate he'd look like in the normal Lost Belt, non-Lost Belt, sorry, in proper human history. But they decided to go with something weirder and more ethereal because that fits the design perfectly. So, with that short dip back into lore out of the way, there's not really much else to talk about without going on like a super deep dive into Lost Belt 3. Stay tuned for Let's Talk FGO for that. Let's go ahead and talk some mechanics. Alright, so let's talk about our Emperor here as a unit. Now, I will say, fair warning, when I assembled this asset, that was, a little bit before all the official stuff comes out. So we're using some previous stuff, pre the official localization. Sorry about that. The skills we'll talk about later. We can talk about a little bit of the translations, but you'll also see that he's referred to as Shi Huang Di. That's the Japanese transliteration, kind of. This is the same as the stuff with why, like, Sanzang is Sanzu, and etc. There are linguistic links between Chinese and Japanese, especially with the writing system, but the Japanese will use different phonemes to say those out loud and to phonetically spell them. This leads to some weirdness with Chinese servants in Japanese. But we can say firmly that the localization is, in fact, Qin Shi Huang, because they keep saying that. It's not just the Japanese reading and abbreviation. So, even though it says Shi Huang Di, same guy. All the same stuff. So, let's talk about those core stats. First, obviously, this man's, woman's, doesn't matter to this guy. They are a royal we now. That's officially in the profile. But, as a ruler, they stack up pretty well. 5-star ruler. There's a decent amount of others. In terms of attack, your boy the Mothman has pretty decent. Falls behind some of the more overtly offensive, quote-unquote, rulers, but is still, notably better than all of the 4-star rulers, and better by a couple hundred of points baseline than Jean. So, low, but not the lowest. And in terms of HP, a decent slight dip under Jean as a recording bit, but as you'll see from skills later, kind of makes up for all that, right? Still, stacks up pretty decent. So, rulers have a pretty high star weight, got a fairly okay-ish for 5 and 4 hits cards, NP charge. Might be a little low, but, you'll probably be doing a lot of crits, guys, so it doesn't really matter that much. Qin Shi Huang is one of those units, you start to see this a lot with some high-power guys, that, almost legitimately works perfectly fine as a complete solo. All support is already internal to them. But, still, if you have to worry about that, the arts cards are okay. 4 hits, high hit counts all around, so it should even out pretty well. And of course, why do I say they're a solo support? Well, let's just look at this NP. This is a self-targeting NP. It only helps them out. Domination beginning. Apply Invincible to self for 1 turn. Apply Target Focus, Taunt to self, 500% chance for 1 turn. Increase Star Gather rate for self by 300% for 3 turns. So not super high, but rulers already have a pretty decent one. So this will mean that most teams, barring other buffs, Qin Shi Huang will probably win out. Increase critical damage for self for 3 turns. This is based on NP level. It starts at 50% and goes to 100% at NP 5. Pretty typical for a crit buff. Honestly, you can probably ride that 50%, but if you can get that up to 75 or more, that can be very decent. And then has an overcharge-based effect for increased attack for self for 3 turns. This is also 50 to 100%. So this is why attack sets are meaningless, right? I've already told you, this guy already has better attack than Jean. Not better attack than Amakusa or Sherlock, sure. Not better than upcoming Himiko, but still a very spicy value because they get to stack 50% on that flat for 3 turns if they NP. And also they get 50% minimum critical over that, and they're invincible for a turn, and they have all the crit stars, and the enemy will attack them for 1 turn, and, they got a normal NP charge defense still. But yeah, that's pretty spicy. So for terms of single target NPs or big bullying enemies like rogue crits, this is a turn that immediately is just like, nah, brah. Assuming they don't have a Pierce, which is just... We'll talk about Caster Artoria eventually, guys. But for now, she's the only one who does that. It's a pretty unique effect. You just wait for enemies to do it, though. But so you can see how this works out. Like, they just suck up all the hits, all the crits, all the damage, and just are fine. I am the Emperor. Everything's okay. So let's go to those active skills, all of which I believe are still without buffs, because they don't need to be. So this one's, a famous line translated, all books must be burned. The localization in English is more like all scripts must be burned. The same thing. It's the same effect. This decreases all enemies' NP charge by 1. That's right, this motherfucker's got an arts NP and a charge down, team charge down. Also drops their defense for 3 turns, 10 to 20%. Defense down, pretty typical. AoE charge down, great. It's on a 6-turn cooldown, but still, that's essential for stall tricks. The whole team goes down, don't have to deal with them. This is not chance-based, by the way. This just happens. Alright? So, Dallas mentioned this earlier. All scholars must be buried. The English localization of this is more like, Confucianism must be suppressed, suppression, buried, killed, whatever. This ability is a 70% chance to stun all enemies. A decent chance. You can massage that with certain debuff enhancers, craft essences. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily, but you can do it. It's still a decently reliable at 70% stun. Another important thing this does, though, is increases self-attack for 3 turns by another 20 to 30%. This means if you pop this after popping NP for 3 turns, or at least on the same turn you pop NP, I guess. If you're doing like a Brave Chain, NP Brave Chain, you're looking at 70% attack up. If you max this out and have no overcharge, 80% attack up. Crazy output, guys. Like I said, attack stat doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, just do damage. Stats don't matter, just do damage. Final skill, Eternal Throne. Another pretty good one. You'll notice all of these are on a 6-turn cooldown. It's a self-battery. A 30 to 50% self-battery. One of the best kinds of self-battery. The only ones that are better are like high-speed words / rapid casting, where you can get all or at least way more of a bar up. But that 30 to 50% is that magic number. You could slap this boy with Golden Sumo. I wouldn't even recommend... There's no point in like Halloween Princess. Just go to Golden Sumo. Straight up Golden Sumo. Heck it. So you got that. Oh, it also removes all his debuffs. Removes all their debuffs. That's great. I love it. I love that skill. It's also just a 1k to 3k heal on a ruler. A ruler who has a hard invincible, a hard defense on his NP, which is arts based, so you're gonna be arts critting a lot. It's great. It's a great skill. Passives is just magic resistance, B+. So not as hardcore as some of the other rulers we've seen. Jean's got that big EX on there. So you might occasionally have to watch out for enemy spicy debuffs, but it's still got a decent amount of protection. Overall, the kit, it's stall. It's a stall turnaround. It's basically, you tell your enemy, no, and then you beat them up. You force them to attack Qin Shi Huang, you reduce their charge, you stun them, you ignore any debuffs they put on you, you fire off your NP whenever the fuck you like, you heal. You're a ruler, so, that HP value, like I said, which is decent in the pack as well. What was it again? Let me double check. Yeah, it's like it's the 3rd highest HP in rulers, an already incredibly meaty, tanky class. No, it's great. You will see a lot of memes of Qin Shi Huang solos in the future, if you haven't seen them already in JP. Because this is one of those self-reliant kits. Honestly, arguably, possibly the only thing they need is star generators, but you could just solve that with a 2030 if you felt like it, or just bring star generators to support them, because you don't have to solo. That's, a meme. That's right, I said it. Solos are a meme. I know you can do them with some servants, and that's cool, but you gotta go out of your way to set it up. For most normal people, you'll use support servants. Just slap generators with, star per turn CEs on there, and go nuts. And depending on what class you're going against, since, barring, of course, Moon Cancer superiorities, rulers are usually good for core classes and just being like, nah, short of berserkers. But even then, pretty resilient with those hard defenses and healing. Should be able to turn the tables on some berserkers as well with that damage output. So this is why I said it's a kind of a hybrid stall. It's a disruption stall that you turn into offense. You tell your opponent whenever they're about to do something big, nah. You take away their charge so they can't NP. You target focus onto self and invincible, the good mash skill, and just tank it all. and then you flip it around and are like, oh, but also I've got like 80% attack up, and you've got like, 20% defense down, which means I'm actually doing literally double damage to you. And I've also got, at least 50% crit damage on that, and I will be critting, assuming you've given Qin Shi Huang the stars. It's spicy. You're going to slap pretty hard, okay? So I think we could even call this like a speed stall strat, right? Combining... Before we move on to talking about, I was going to talk about CEs and like team comp. Let me cover the far side of this very quickly. As a ruler, this does mean you do got to pull from an on-ball assortment of Ascension items, but they're all basic statues. So the spread might annoy you if you're low on something in particular, but it's not mats, so it's great. Where the mats come in is unfortunately in skill reinforcement, because as a ruler, you got to deal with a multitude. So I'm going to tell you right now, that first level of skill enhancement, I'm not going to be able to do that possibly until after Christmas with that lotto. Because I'll be rolling on this banner for another unit, but I won't mind if a Mothman, who is voiced by motherfucking Lelouch, by the way, shows up. Also Joker. Yeah, I'm not going to be mad. They're going to have to wait on those skills, though, with those caster cookies, especially in there, that first couple. To me, caster cookies are precious gems, at least the blue ones. But you're pretty normal through the first 7. The fact that it's a spread might be annoying to some players. Skill cookies are one of those things. Skill gems, you burn through them pretty fast. You may have some classes you're particularly low in. This takes multiple, so that can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. But it's up to you to decide whether that's more than a pain in the butt than to have 12 bells per skill and 20 cores. I'm pretty sure I don't. That said, I think the only skill I'm going to immediately I'd want a turbo to 10 would be Eternal Throne, just for that maximum battery and maximum healing. I love 50% batteries. That's my only 10 skill on Da Vinci. I think my Anastasia was an 8 on her battery skill, and that's only because she needed permafrosts right when that came out. Anyway, so the Ascension, probably not a problem, though do be warned again, it will need a spread. So if you don't have the stuff, you can't just necessarily farm one thing, you might have to spread out. Skill reinforcement, that spread of different types is a little dicier, but you're also going to get kicked in the butt on those high levels, okay? So watch out for that if you're trying to go for an immediate 10-10-10. So let's do that thing I was going to talk about earlier and really quickly cover team comp and CE selection. CEs, pretty simple, pretty basic stuff. First of all, got a 50% battery, and you want a big attack stat. So like I said, go for a golden sumo, maybe go for dive into blue or aerial drive, something to enhance the buster or arts cards. I didn't mention this earlier, but it's been on screen the whole time. 2 arts cards, 2 buster cards. A Saber-style hybrid deck. You can do a lot of play there. If you don't want to go for the battery, though, so you can immediately NP, just go, I would say, probably go whole hog on attack. Offense only. Attack up, crit up. That's probably your focus, Maybe improve star generation a little bit if you're trying to do some solo stuff, and we're not providing Qin Shi Huang with a star generator. That might be okay. But other than that, yeah, go on offense. Or alternatively, you could go all on defense. Don't even spend your NP for a while. Slap volume in on here for free invincibles. Roll the dice with necromancy and some guts. Go for ideal Holy King. Get more max HP for everybody. Whatever your favorite stall type CEs on rulers will work, but also you can flip that to offensive. Because this is one of those non-offensive NPs that is actually offensive. Like I said, 50% crit damage base for 3 turns, 50% attack up for 3 turns. It's spicy. So you can try and maximize that offense, and because you're hitting neutral on most characters, you're going to slap pretty hard. In terms of actually supporting them, there are a few things. I would say because got 2 arts cards and the arts NP, arts supporter like Tammo flows perfectly, reduce those skill cooldowns. 6 is a little, not the longest, but is a little long. I would say max cooldown 5 is probably or min cooldown 5 is probably the average for skills. 6 is a little long. You see some that are 4 or 3. Those are fast. So I call 5 the average. 6 is, high average, a little long. 6 turns can be forever in this day and age. So Tammo's skill cooldown effect is actually useful, plus healing and more charging NP, etc. Also, because the charge down has a longer cooldown, more charge down spread out, you also can't go wrong with your boy Wave of Velvet, aka Zhilang, because that guy's got 50% worth of battery in him. And then this guy's got 50% worth of battery in them. So you could easily turn that into a, hi, I've got lots of damage cut and damage plus, and also even more critical strength, and I'm NPing right now as well for some more meme strats. Other than that, honestly, like, while Qin Shi Huang is also a hitter, Qin Shi Huang is also a taunter with invuls, a stall piece. So you were probably using them just as much as semi-support, like to take the heat off your more focused damage dealers who probably have high damage output NPs and probably special trait damage or other some buffs, so that you can like keep the heat off your more fragile units so they can swing very big on bosses who will often have loads and loads of HP. But you don't have to. I would say critical strength and just in general batterying is probably a good way to go. Heck it, throw Hans in there. That'll be great. Throw Hans in there. Big boy crit buffs. So, that's our general talk of the times on using Qin Shi Huang in the old, team comp. Let's talk about Rarity. Guys, I gotta warn you, rare. We're looking at Sin Campaign 2, which is gonna be, it's not announced yet, but I know it is coming. This video will be dropping publicly whenever it is announced or when it rolls, etc. So, that's the first big one, big opportunity. Then you gotta wait 2 years. The banner that was Happy New Year 2020 in Japan, and I remember that Japan is 2 years in our future, 2 years ahead of us, so we will be getting 2020 content at the start of 2022. Okay? So you gotta wait until January 1st, 2022 to take another swing. Though, obviously, fair pre-warning, they might bump that up to Thanksgiving 2021. So Thanksgiving next year could be that. Gosh, 2020 is almost over, guys. And the next one is at whatever our equivalent of 21 million downloads is, which was earlier this year in Japan. Wow, geez, that's fast. They already hit 22 million? That's a short turnaround. Wouldn't be shocked, though. They've been doing, hopefully, big business in the second half of the year. So, yeah, this is going to be your only opportunity for minimum a year. Minimum a year, if not more like 13 or 14 months. Okay? So, take your swing now if you want them. And then you'll have another couple of opportunities spaced out through the year, though it's looking like the latter half of 2022, Japan's current 2020 season, will probably have quite a few spicy banners popping up. All right, guys, I think that's going to be our wrap-up phase. Hope you enjoyed that. Sorry if it was a little long in parts, but, this guy's got a very interesting mechanical niche in addition to all that history stuff we talked about. Rulers are a very exotic, specialized class. No two rulers truly do all the same thing so far, at least as far as I've noticed. This isn't like some other gacha games. Like, this is a thing we talk about a lot with Arcanites. You'll see units at different rarities who basically do the same thing as other units at other rarities, right? Just on different scales. And FGO does do that sometimes. Rulers are usually pretty unique in how they play. I'd have to double check Astrea, aka... sorry, I yawned. But aka Luvia's stat line to see if she's similar to any of these 5 stars, but I don't think overly. So, and our upcoming welfare ruler, you should keep an eye out for. They also occupy their own niche. And I say be prepared for her, because, well, there's no rerun yet. Anyways, we're going to wrap up. Thanks so much for tuning into Wanted, everybody. Hope you liked that little history lecture insert there. Be sure to give a shout out to Dallas in the comments. And I will see you next time, which will probably be soon, because Christmas can't be too far away. And then I got to talk about French stuff. We'll see how good my wheelhouse is. Though technically, I think some of that stuff's Italian. The later Italian stuff is not my forte either. Unless you want to talk about the Divine Comedy. Where's the Divine Comedy servant to Lightworks? You just trolled me with Shimosa. Come on. Come the fuck on. Hey, what do you know? Alright. I'm wrapping it up. The dumb jokes are done. We're ending the episode. This has been Wanted. Good luck on your rolls. Like I said, I'm rolling on this banner for other reasons, but I'm not, whatever. It's a whatever. Whatever happens, I'll be happy with anything unless I get absolutely nothing, but I have 500 Saint Courts, so if I get nothing, you'll hear about it. You'll be hearing words from me and my lawyer. No. Okay, let's get out of here. So I'd like to remind you to give this video a like if you liked it. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section down below. Rolling, not rolling, whatever. I noticed that, shocker, the Zhang Yu video wasn't super popular because, 90% of the comments were, he's cool, but I'm not rolling for him, so, yeah, no, shocker, I know. But leave those commentos down in the section below. You can also check out our Discord. Link, as always, is in the description in our channel page. Dallas is one of our moderators there, if you want to go yell at him about China. Of course, if you're new here and haven't already, please subscribe to the channel to always get our latest videos like Wanted And make sure you've got that bell rung for notifications. You always know when we post a new video. They haven't announced the banner yet. Sometimes they announce banners at like midnight, and I have to throw Wanted up in the middle of the night. Notification bell, really great for that, guys. Make sure it's set to all. You can also check out when we live stream. You can also join our channel to support us. A little join button down below or link in our description. But of course, very important, like it said at the front of the episode, consider supporting us on Patreon. You could have gotten this episode early and access to lots of other goodies, such as audio downloads of our major podcasts. And it really helps support us out, especially if YouTube's ad rev and stuff is being weird. So keep that all in mind, and I will see you guys next time. And then I really don't know what gag should be here. Should this be like a Yes, Your Highness thing, or should I make some kind of Mothman joke? I don't know. Whatever. Just pick your favorite meme. Put it here. Put your favorite meme here. No, not that one, you idiot. The other one. What are you doing? Okay, bye, everybody.